Tonight on Fox 45 News, 60 years behind bars mistakenly offered to a squeegee kid accused of murder.
That's an outrageous offer given the facts of this case.
He's a 14-year-old.
The attorneys share why the deal was rejected as Fox 45 News examines what this mistake reveals about State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. The national report card is in, and Maryland students suffered the most during the pandemic. Team coverage of the crisis in the classroom and what's being done to reverse learning loss. Project Baltimore introduces you to the candidates in the city's first ever school board election.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
And I'm Kai Jackson. A major update to the case of a 15-year-old squeegee kid accused of shooting and killing a man in July.
That's right. We are learning more about a plea deal a city prosecutor offered him and his attorney that the city state's attorney's office says was never approved and has since been rescinded.
We are taking a deep dive into these new developments. Former city prosecutor Thuruvik Naraja joins us live in the studio to talk about what this means for the case and the city state's attorney's office.
But we begin with Jeff Abel with a closer look at this latest mistake from Marilyn Mosby's office. Jeff?
Well, first it was on the table. Tonight it is off the table. A plea deal for the squeegee kid accused of murdering a motorist. And tonight his attorneys say it was really no deal at all.
At the time she mentioned it, I just dismissed it outright. It's like, absolutely not. We're not accepting anything.
For the attorneys representing the 15-year-old squeegee defendant, it was an offer easy to refuse.
Life suspended over 60 years.
60 years in prison in exchange for a guilty plea from the squeegee kid accused of murdering 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds, a driver shot dead at an Inner Harbor intersection in July.
That's an outrageous offer given the facts of this case.
Which is absurd.
It's completely absurd.
The prosecutor had made the offer before a judge had even decided whether the 15-year-old accused killer should be tried in adult court or juvenile court.
It just screams that this 14-year-old should be in the juvenile system.
It took no time for the defense team to refuse the offer, and today the state's attorney's office rescinded the offer altogether, issuing a statement saying, unfortunately, the attorney assigned to the case single-handedly and deliberately developed and conveyed an offer without the approval of supervisors nor that of state's attorney Mosby, which is the normal homicide review protocol and process of our office.
The public needs to know how the state's attorney's office is handling this case.
For the defense team, the on-again, off-again offer is now raising questions about how prosecutors may be handling the rest of the case.
Is she rogue in her offers? Why is she not going through the proper channels before conveying an offer to the defense? What if we accepted that offer?
But certainly when the front office says that they had no inkling that this offer was going to be made and they didn't play a role in that offer, then there's something wrong with that process.
Well, this case will be back in the courtroom in 3 weeks when a judge will decide whether to keep it in adult court or waive it to the juvenile courts. We are live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Let's bring in former city prosecutor Thuruvik Naraja. The city state's attorney's office says the attorney gave this offer without the approval from supervisors. We know the office is short dozens of prosecutors. What does this say about the state of that office right now?
I mean, what an embarrassing mess. You know, the state's attorney was roundly defeated at the election. We know she's facing a federal trial. We know that half, maybe three-quarters of office have basically quit. I think we all hoped, including her opponents, that she would leave with some measure of dignity. But these last couple of weeks have just been a colossal, chaotic mess. And this is one more example of it being very clear that there's no one steering the ship.
How does this play into the future of this case? Will there be future plea deals or not?
I mean, I think what Ms. Mosby's office has done, whether it's this rogue prosecutor or the lack of supervision, has created an opportunity for the defense attorneys, who are both very savvy, to create a media firestorm around this. This is becoming a very popular tactic to try to litigate these cases in the public eye instead of in a courtroom. And Ms. Mosby's unforced error here has created an opportunity for them to do just that.
Yeah, in this case, you can't blame them, really. We've seen a few questionable plea deals come out of the city state's attorney's office, including that of convicted arsonist Luther Trent. We talked to him a few months ago, a case you worked on. How does that compare to what happened in this case?
I mean, even back then, we were wondering whether that was an outlier, an anomaly, or whether it was part of a pattern. I think we now see that this has been a colossal mess from beginning to end. The last couple of weeks, we've had a number of botched exonerations where rightly convicted killers were freed wrongly by Ms. Mosby's office. Now Luther Trent and this case are both instances where she claims that the offer was not approved by her supervisors. When it happens once, it's an error. When it happens over and over and over again, it helps the public understand why public safety is so out of control and why that office is in such need of repair and renovation.
All right. Former city prosecutor Thuroo Vignarajah, thanks for coming in and talking to us about this.
Thanks for having me.
When it comes to squeegee kids, there are laws in place that could keep kids out of city intersections, but Mayor Brandon Scott has said he won't enforce them. The mayor says squeegee kids are panhandling, which he says is protected under the First Amendment as free speech. Well, the city's likely next state's attorney disagrees.
I understand, however, on the law, I disagree. To me, there's a difference of panhandling, holding a sign very quietly in a area, not going in and out of traffic.
Right.
Going in and out of traffic is an action. Therefore, I believe that action is illegal.
Fox 45 News sent questions to the mayor's office asking last week, does Mayor Scott agree with Ivan Bates on enforcing low-level offenses? And will Mayor Scott allow the Baltimore Police Department to enforce these squeegee-related laws on the books? The mayor's office has not answered our questions.
Well, turning now to the crisis in the classroom. New test results from a few 100,000 4th and 8th grade students nationwide is showing the disturbing toll the pandemic is having on student learning and achievement. Here in our state, this year's National Assessment of Educational Progress scores reveal Maryland students may have been hit harder than many of their peers across the country. We have team coverage tonight. Chris Papps is looking into what candidates for Baltimore City School Board would do to improve student performance in tonight's Project Baltimore report. That's coming up at 10:15. But we're going to begin with Fox 45's Amy Simpson and a closer look at these troubling new test scores.
We've heard anecdotally about learning loss for several years now, referring to that slide back or the slowed progress of students due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But these new test scores, they give us actual data and a much more clear picture of what the learning loss actually looks like. Called the nation's report card, it's a warning sign for districts across the country and right here in Maryland, as new student test scores reveal the toll of the COVID-19 pandemic on learning.
If this is not a wake-up call for us to double down our efforts and improve education, even before it was before the pandemic, then I don't know what will.
The National Assessment of Education Progress is a nationwide test given to some 4th and 8th grade students, used to assess progress and proficiency in reading and math. Normally conducted every 2 years, the test was proctored earlier this year for the first time since 2019, a year before the pandemic thrust millions of students into virtual learning. Across the U.S. in 2022, average student test scores declined by several points in both reading and math. The U.S. Secretary of Education on CNN this morning.
I'm calling on all leaders throughout the country to look at this as a call to action, to invest in education so that we don't go backwards.
But here in Maryland, more startling numbers, which show a majority of the state's 4th and 8th graders are not proficient in math or reading. Of those tested this year, 4th graders dropped 10 points in math and 7 points in reading. Meanwhile, 8th graders dropped 11 points in math and 5 points in reading. And in Baltimore City, one of the 26 largest school districts analyzed nationwide, Baltimore City 4th and 8th graders only performing better than one city, and students in Detroit in both subjects. In math, 4th graders in Baltimore City on average testing 26 points lower than their peers in other large cities. And of Baltimore's 8th graders testing an average of 21 points lower in math. Fox 45 News requested an interview today with the head of Maryland's public schools, though a spokesperson said Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury's schedule would not allow. In a statement, Chowdhury said in part, all student learning suffered during the pandemic, and quote, there is no sugarcoating these results. Maryland has been experiencing a downward trend since 2013, and a return to normal is not good enough. The current struggles of our students cannot be solely attributed to the pandemic.
I was scheduled to have an interview late this afternoon with CEO of City Schools, Dr. Sonia Santelises, before the district canceled that interview, saying Santelises was no longer available to discuss. However, she did put out a statement today saying she was not surprised by these test scores given the disruption to learning over the last few years since the last time this nationwide test was proctored. She says the district will continue its investments in reading, and they plan to, quote, go deep in math. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
This evening, political commentator Armstrong Williams hosted a community town hall at Hubert Memorial Church in Baltimore, focusing on young people. The focus was on education struggles, and some believe a lack of education leads to youth crime.
So growing up, discipline and boundaries were essential.
Oh, yeah.
Authority established the boundaries, and when you breach those boundaries, there were consequences. That doesn't exist anymore. If young folk do not have an authority in the home that they come out of, that they regard and revere, there will be no authority outside of that home that they will respect.
The Baltimore City school system gets probably more money per pupil than most places in the United States. How does this continue?
Because the education system is not there to benefit the student. It's there to benefit the teachers and the administrators.
That brings us to our question of the day. Will the performance of public schools affect the way you vote in November? So far, 70% of those who voted say no. We'd like to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Things looking okay now, although fog is beginning to set up. This could be something you're contending with towards morning. Westminster now down to 1 mile visibility. There's some drizzle, too. Not showing up too well on the HD radar, but we had some this morning, and it's the same system that's going to push some of that our way into tomorrow morning. So it may be some low beam headlines that you need. 11 p.m. temperature at 60, 59 at 3 a.m. and 58 at 7 a.m. But what do you notice? Yes, the fog moving in. I've got your neighborhood by neighborhood, hour by hour visibilities that the computer models are putting out. My Weather Authority forecast in minutes.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock. For the first time, Baltimore City voters will have a say on the city school board. Project Baltimore's exclusive interview with the candidates and how they intend to improve city schools. A new vacant home initiative in Baltimore, not to fill them, but to prevent a tragedy like the one on Stricker Street. How firefighters will know whether it's dangerous to enter. And the city celebrates a milestone in the downtown arena's renovation. But crime is rising in Baltimore. How the city's crime crisis could set back a multi-million-dollar investment.
In just 2 weeks, Baltimore City residents will make history because for the first time ever, voters will choose their own school board members. And the 4 candidates have their work cut out for them.
National test scores released today put Baltimore City among the lowest in the country for reading and math. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps spoke recently with the candidates to find out how they'd fix the school system.
Baltimore City Schools, right now, is the only district in Maryland with no elected board members. They're all appointed by the mayor. These 4 candidates are running to be the first ever elected members. And 2 will win.
It's a chance for voters to have their voice heard. It's a chance for us to center students in decision making.
Salima Jasani is a former Baltimore City Schools teacher. So is April Curley.
I believe that those who are elected and in places of power and positions of power have neglected to use that power in ways that are beneficial and useful to the people that they serve. And so, yeah, I think that our school system needs a lot of work.
Project Baltimore canvassed the city, traveling corner to corner to catch up with the candidates and find out what message they are taking to the voters in the final days before the election.
We cannot get anywhere in improving this system unless we are all unified.
Candidates like Kwame Kenyatta Bay, who is a current city schools teacher, an IT professional, Ashley Esposito.
I'm the only parent community member in the race. Like, that is the perspective that I want to bring. You know, I'm not an educator. I'm coming in as a mom that's just concerned and wanting to be that voice and to be that direct line of communication for other parents.
Baltimore City currently has 10 appointed school board members. The upcoming election will add 2 additional seats, making it a 12-person board, which will oversee a $1.6 billion budget and about 77,000 students. And this is a school system with serious issues, despite being one of America's most funded large school districts. According to federal test scores, Baltimore City is ranked among the lowest in the country in terms of student proficiencies in math and reading. Curley says part of the problem is that many students are traumatized by violence, making it difficult to learn. She favors abolishing school police and using the money to hire more counselors.
I worked, as a teacher. I had an amazing school resource officer in my school. And still, I feel like there were deeper things that my students and teachers needed.
Esposito wants more money put into hiring tutors to bridge the knowledge gap, while Jasani says the school system needs to better identify specific student needs and tailor education plans to them.
I think at the systemic level, we are not individualizing instruction for students.
Kenyatta Bay wants Baltimore City schools to focus on job readiness, get away from outdated curriculum, and prepare students for employment in modern fields.
We're in a changing society right now. And if we don't change with it, if we don't change our education with it, we'll lose it. We will lose it, And I see it slipping.
While they all take different approaches to improving student outcomes, all 4 candidates are calling for greater transparency and accountability within city schools.
I know firsthand experience what it means to exist in a system where you want to do great things, but sometimes you are limited because of the lack of leadership and vision that exists.
In the past 5 years, Project Baltimore has exposed massive scandals in city schools involving inflated enrollment, fake report cards, grade fixing, and federal rights violations. But the school system has not agreed to an interview on these topics or any other for more than 5 years.
I really want to go on the school board and model what it looks like to have tough conversations and to lean into discomfort, because in my mind, we're only as good as the lowest performing school.
These 4 candidates say their election to the school board will ensure parents are informed of what's happening in city schools and have a say in decision making.
I am trying to set the people's agenda on the school board.
I hope that voters think about who is going to be able to make sure that your child and all of our children have access to the supports that they need.
This is more than an election. This is not about separatism. This is about building a mission, building a goal, building our school systems, making them stronger, and making them what the community wants to see.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, if you want to know more about the candidates for Baltimore City School Board, go to foxbaltimore.com, click on Project Baltimore. And as the election draws near, you can find updates online with more updates from the candidates and where they stand on some of the biggest challenges in Baltimore City schools.
The Baltimore City Fire Department is launching its new unsafe vacant marking initiative that will help first responders identify unsafe buildings before they go inside and make entry. Mayor Brandon Scott, Councilman John Bullock, and other city leaders led a team through the Mount Clair community today to put new reflective signs on properties considered unsafe to enter. Now, the new initiative is in response to the deaths of 3 firefighters back in January. They died when the vacant fire that they were battling, that building collapsed on top of them. Authorities say the city knew that the house was not safe to enter, but that information was not passed on to the firefighters. There are 800 signs in stock right now, and starting this week, firefighters will go out for 2 hours every Wednesday to document unsafe vacant homes. So far, more than 500 unsafe properties have been identified.
Well, the majority of Americans say children should have to wait until age 18 to undergo gender-affirming surgery, but President Biden disagrees. The latest on this ongoing debate coming up after the break.
And the main problem tomorrow morning's commute could be fog. Take a look at our future scan computer model hour by hour through about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. That's when we really start seeing that fog get going on the eastern shore first. And then it looks like everybody stands a chance of at least some patchy fog. Take a look at that visibility down near zero around Chestertown about 4 or 5 a.m. and at about 6, 7 a.m. Up at Cockeysville, back to Elkton and Chestertown. Could even be a problem through about 9 when the commute ends. I'm going to have a full look at your first look about the Halloween forecast coming up, when you could be seeing the most rain for trick-or-treating. My full forecast.
Well, developing now, the issue of whether minors should be able to undergo permanent gender-affirming surgery with their parents' consent is becoming increasingly political.
Sinclair national correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
Protesters on both sides clashing over what's best for American children when it comes to permanent gender-affirming care. The debate spilling into the streets of Nashville over Vanderbilt University Medical Center's performance of transgender surgeries on minors with parental consent.
How can they possibly be mature enough to understand and consent to the life-changing implications of these drastic procedures?
You can't marginalize someone's ability to be human and be fully themselves. It's not okay.
New polling shows nearly 80% of likely voters say they think children should have to wait until they're 18 to undergo permanent gender-affirming care. President Biden disagrees.
No state should be able to do that, in my view.
In Little Rock, Arkansas, the nation's first trial over the state's ban on gender-affirming care for minors is currently underway. One parent of a 17-year-old trans girl fighting against the state's law, saying, quote, "I never imagined I'd have to fight for my daughter to be able to receive medically necessary health care her doctor says she needs and we know she needs." Trans rights becoming increasingly political.
I do believe that it's unfair for girls to have biological boys play sports with biological girls.
Some of the most heated debates taking place in high school athletics. In North Carolina, a female high school volleyball player recovering from a concussion after getting hit in the head with a reportedly 70-mile-per-hour ball spike from a transgender athlete. The volleyball team will now forfeit all games against the transgender athletes team going forward, citing unfair competitive advantage and safety concerns.
This month, Republicans introduced a bill to ban instruction on gender identity and sexual orientation for students from kindergarten to third grade. The bill unlikely to make much progress unless Republicans make big gains in the midterms. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
A recent uptick in crime in Baltimore, how it could impact some major redevelopments meant to improve the city.
A ballot question is drawing questions from city leaders. The concerns one city councilman has about term limits. Those stories and more coming up right after the break. Our top story at 10:30 tonight, concerns about crime as Baltimore City sees some major new developments.
The newly renovated Lexington Market is now open while renovations to the Baltimore Arena are underway. It now has a new name. It had been known as Royal Farms Arena since 2014.
But there are concerns that crime could keep some people away, especially after a violent weekend in Baltimore.
Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has a closer look at the crime.
The mayor aimed to reduce homicides by 15% year to year. That hasn't happened yet, as this violence persists. A 35-year-old man shot and killed here in East Baltimore, part of the violence over the weekend. At least 11 people were shot Friday through Sunday, 3 of those victims killed.
It's just depressing to think that in October, this is not the middle of the summer.
October shaping up to be a violent month for the city, with at least 23 homicides 24 days into the month. And overall, homicides and non-fatal shootings remain up compared to this time last year.
When you make a pledge on the campaign trail, you're supposed to honor it. You're supposed to be held accountable to it. It's the measuring stick that is supposed to be used to evaluate whether you're doing well or not.
A former federal prosecutor Through Vignaraja, who also ran for mayor, speaking to Mayor Brandon Scott's campaign goals, including reducing homicides by 15% annually.
I will aim to reduce homicides by 15% each year in my term.
Fast forward to this year, the mayor defending his strategy despite missing that campaign mark.
You're the one who ran on this, though.
We are talking about, Mackenzie, a disease of violence that has existed in Baltimore for over 50 years. And the people of Baltimore want it to be handled the right way, and they also understand that it's bigger than the police department.
We have a very clear measuring stick, 15% reductions year after year. We are so far beyond that as a failure that we don't even hear the mayor talk about it anymore.
And while the mayor's term lasts until 2024, Vignaraja is hopeful the election this November, including a new city state's attorney, will help reduce the violence.
Everybody has to be on the same page.
Baltimore police say they continue to make arrests, specifically over the weekend, making 70 arrests, 1 for homicide. Reporting in Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, some big things are coming to Baltimore City. The new Lexington Market, as we said, is now open. It held a soft launch today. The new market cost $45 million to rebuild. It is featuring more than 40 vendors. Top Golf is opening on Friday. The massive high-tech driving range joins the Horseshoe Casino, M&T Bank Stadium, and Camden Yards in the city's entertainment sports district. We'll call it that. And renovation on the Baltimore Arena is expected to be finished in February. Today, city leaders announced a new name for the venue. It is now being known as the CFG Bank Stadium. The developer Oakview Group is spending $150 million to renovate the arena.
The CFG Bank Arena is built on a vision to do something extraordinary for the city of Baltimore.
This is going to change things. There's a lot of energy here now. There's a lot of business here now, and there's a lot of opportunity here now. But you wait and see what's going to happen over the next 3 to 4 years.
Did you tell Pharrell was happy to see the new CFG Arena? Well, in the areas we're seeing these new developments, there is also some concern about crime. In fact, the Baltimore Police Department's crime map shows dozens of crimes around the arena, mostly robberies, burglaries, and some assaults. In fact, Lexington Market has also seen its share of crime, including open-air drug markets and this Fox 45 video obtained last summer. It shows an attack caught on camera outside of the market. It also shows a group of men punching and kicking another man. Fox 45 News saw similar videos from that area in 2020 and 2019. Economist Aniban Basu says all of the development can help, but only if it can get a handle on crime.
To really have the most number of people be in the arena, therefore generate the most economic impact and the most tax-based effects for the city of Baltimore, public safety, right? There's too much anxiety among many people in terms of coming to the city, including downtown. If we can address that anxiety by improving the public safety outcomes, this city will be on the march forward once again. But it takes more than beautiful buildings. It also takes a public that's willing to be entertained in the city, and not enough people are willing to do that right now, given the public safety issues.
Also in the entertainment district, there was a shooting right outside of the Hippodrome Theater early this year. It happened as a performance was ending. That was back in May. At the time, we spoke with residents about whether they feel safe going out in Baltimore, especially at night. Many of them told us they don't feel safe.
Well, as Election Day nears, one ballot question is drawing additional questioning from city officials. Question K asks voters whether or not they think elected leaders should be subject to term limits. However, some are now concerned it could also limit lower-level positions from running for higher office. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor takes us beyond the podium.
Should our city leaders be term limited? It's a question being posed to voters this November, appearing on Baltimore ballots as Question K. If passed, the mayor, city council president, and comptroller are limited to just 2 4-year terms. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer introduced similar legislation back in 2018. In an exclusive interview with Fox 45 Sunday, Schleifer saying this about the proposal.
I think the voters do support term limits as a whole, but again, you have to have the details worked out.
More specifically, Schleifer says he's unsure if the language in Question K will prevent an experienced candidate who is term limited from running for another office.
If multiple council people serve 2 terms and then wanted to run for council president or wanted to run for mayor, would they be able to do so?
We took the question to one of Question K's supporters.
Just because the box where they permit for the wording, it doesn't fully explain what the Question K actually does.
Dr. Al Hathaway clarifying the Question K you see on your ballot is a short summary. The full text clearly states this charter amendment, quote, shall not preclude an elected official from seeking other elected offices within Baltimore City. In other words,
there is no prohibition in Question K for an elected official who served for 2 terms to run for another office. In fact, that's the desire. Ultimately, a person would serve as for 2 terms as the city council member, would then get elected the president of the city council for 2 terms, and then serve for mayor for 2 terms.
Meaning a term-limited elected official could technically still serve for a total of 24 years in city government. But either way, only time will tell what voters think come Election Day. Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
And that brings us to our second question of the day. Should there be term limits for elected officials? So far, 87% of those who voted say yes. Make your voice heard by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Click on the Pulse tab. And we do want to disclose that Sinclair's executive chairman, David Smith, did financially support the petition drive to get the issue of term limits on the Baltimore City ballot. Sinclair is the parent company of Fox 45.
Developing right now, several people are recovering and at least 2 are dead after a shooting at a St. Louis high school today. Police say the gunman fired shots just after 9 this morning. They say the shooter first caught security guards' attention when he tried to enter a locked school building. It's not clear how he got inside. Officers ultimately caught up with him.
Upon hearing gunfire, they ran to that gunfire, located the shooter, and engaged that shooter in exchange of gunfire. The suspect was struck and transported from this location, and that suspect has since been pronounced deceased.
There's no word on a motive for the shooting at this time, and police have not identified the suspect.
The Department of Justice announced charges against more than a dozen Chinese nationals, including intelligence officers and government officials. Attorney General Merrick Garland outlined 3 cases filed in New York and New Jersey. They involve a scheme to repatriate Chinese Americans using surveillance, threats, and intimidation. Obstructing a court case involving a major telecommunications company, bribing officials to get information on the strategy and witnesses to be called, and an effort to turn U.S. individuals into agents of China.
The Justice Department will not tolerate attempts by any foreign power to undermine the rule of law upon which our democracy is based. We will continue to fiercely protect the rights guaranteed to everyone in our country, and we will defend the integrity of our institutions.
Garland, along with the Deputy Attorney General and FBI Director, all say these cases show the willingness of the Chinese government to violate the law and international norms to get the upper hand. They urge anybody being targeted in a similar manner to report it.
Two Republican attorneys general are raising questions about the role of content moderation by social media companies.
Members of the Biden administration are being ordered to testify about their work to fight disinformation online during the pandemic. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has details.
A federal judge in Louisiana ordering prominent figures of the Biden administration, like Dr. Anthony Fauci, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, former press secretary Jen Psaki, to give depositions about how they worked with social media platforms.
We expect more from our technology companies.
Last year, the White House was blunt about what it viewed as a need for platforms to fight mis- and disinformation about COVID-19 and vaccines.
We're asking them to monitor misinformation more closely. We're asking them to consistently take action against misinformation super spreaders on their platforms.
The Republican attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana argue in a lawsuit filed in May, recently updated to list dozens of administration officials as defendants. The executive branch, quote unquote, colluded with social media companies to suppress opposing viewpoints, which the White House has long denied.
Any decision about platform usage and who should be on the platform is orchestrated and determined by private sector companies.
The AGs also say government officials played a role in platforms moderating content about controversial topics like Hunter Biden's laptop.
The judge in this case, Terry Doty, is a self-described conservative who was appointed by former President Trump, and he's got a history of ruling against the Biden administration, while the two attorneys general involved haven't shied from politically capitalizing on this lawsuit.
Louisiana AG Jeff Landry is running for governor and touts the lawsuit on his campaign website. Missouri's Eric Schmidt is running for Senate and lists taking on big tech as a campaign platform and flouts Fauci in ads.
I sued to get rid of Fauci's COVID mandates.
As for what they hope to gain from the suit, Schmidt doesn't dispute the characterization that this is an exposure lawsuit.
We get to take depositions, we get to ask for emails, we get to ask for documents related to how are you colluding with these big tech partners?
Which may or may not be helpful as state and federal leaders grapple with tough questions about who should be moderating content and when. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
President Biden trying to rally the Democratic Party ahead of the midterm elections, how he's doing it and what a new poll shows voters are thinking.
And by tomorrow morning, getting your kids to school may be a little rough in some patchy fog. Temperatures in the 50s, but rising to close to 70 tomorrow afternoon. Still a little unsettled. I'm going to let you know how unsettled it looks for Halloween, though, hour by hour. We've got an early look for you coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
wore my orange today because Halloween is 1 week from today. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers has our look at our Halloween forecast.
Mary, I was going to say, you look great. You look very autumnal.
I may wear it next Monday, too, so don't judge me.
I don't judge. I don't judge. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at, hey, speaking of fall and Halloween and autumn, we got that forecast for you hour by hour coming up in a couple of minutes. But first, we got to get through this. You don't see much on the HG radar, right? But look at this. There's plenty of rain that's going into southern New England as well as New York State. And although you don't see much here in Baltimore, it's kind of like what's been going on all day long. The clouds and maybe a little bit of drizzle. It's a little too light to really show up on the radar. But if you don't have clean wipers like me, it's kind of tough to see. So keep that in mind for the morning commute. And on top of that, with this little disturbance, this little dotted line that's hanging off the coast, we potentially could also see some fog with that extra moisture around. Otherwise, it's going to be a damp start tomorrow. The next weather maker after this one that's out to the west, a cold front, that's got lots of rain, even thunderstorms, even some snow with it on the backside. Well, that is going to lose some of its dynamics, if you will, or some of its strength as it moves eastbound. But it's going to have enough push to finally get all this mess out of here by the end of the week. But then comes Halloween, and we could get into another weather pattern by then. Mile 1 Towson Cam showing us kind of that foggy type of view with 62 degrees. Visibility's not bad just yet. I know up toward Westminster was down to about a mile thus far. Winds out of the north-northeast at about 3 miles an hour. And you can see here again, the clouds still socked in, just does not give up. Eastern side of the Appalachians. Hop over the Appalachians with that easterly wind. It dries as it comes down those slopes out to our west, and that's where temperatures were in the 70s today. And we still have clear skies with Cumberland at 55, 52 at Pittsburgh, and there's the warmth, Cleveland as well as Columbus. Eventually, we'll see a little bit of a warming trend as some of these clouds do thin, but that's not going to happen tonight. Temperatures settle down into the mid to upper 50s. You see some of those spots of green. That's your drizzle. That will continue into tomorrow on and off. Maybe a little brighter skies here and there as we head into the afternoon, and that could help push our temperatures a little bit closer to about 70 degrees tomorrow afternoon. 57 tonight, cloudy skies again, some patchy dense fog, potentially late. It will be patchy, though, so low beams on. Some drizzle as well for tomorrow. A little bit of drizzle here and there, otherwise mostly cloudy and 69. 7-day forecast. By Wednesday, 30% chance of mainly afternoon showers. That's that cold front. 71, 69 Thursday. Friday looks good. Saturday looks good, too, although a cool down. Clouds increase Sunday. And then for trick-or-treating on Halloween, the candy corn's not too happy about it, but you may not be too unhappy. Afternoon, 67, a light shower or two develops. The earlier you put your Halloween trick-or-treating, it looks like, again, this may change, but I think the better you'll be. Any shower should be generally light for trick-or-treating.
Jonathan, thank you. California Governor Gavin Newsom pledged to serve his full term if he's reelected this November. It's an apparent effort to dispel rumors he's planning to run for president in 2024. He made the vow during a debate with his Republican challenger this weekend. Newsom is airing ads in Texas and Florida blasting the Republican governors and their policies, a move many have said point to Newsom's broader ambitions. Well, tonight, a debate in Florida's gubernatorial race as Democratic challenger Charlie Crist clashed with incumbent Ron DeSantis. The tone for the whole night set early, with much of the debate focused on homeowners insurance and hurricane preparedness. Mike Mangoli from our Sinclair sister station in West Palm Beach has details.
Property insurance. Property insurance under you has doubled in the state of Florida. Doubled, Ron. That's not good for the people of this state.
His plan would end up capsizing the state of Florida if we had a real storm.
Governor DeSantis and Charlie Crist using their 1-minute answers to your questions to go on offense and attack each other, and rebuttals often becoming defense. And that pattern continued into talk of Hurricane Ian.
What needs to be addressed is how we treat a storm before it makes landfall. And unfortunately, Governor DeSantis failed on this.
And Charlie Crist is sitting there. You know what he was doing during this? He was in hiding out in Puerto Rico. He wasn't helping his community here. And then when he got back, what did he do? His campaign was soliciting campaign contributions from storm victims.
The CBS 12 News gubernatorial debate was initially planned for October 12th. It was postponed so the governor and Crist could concentrate on recovery efforts in Southwest Florida.
You know, whether it comes to COVID or it comes to the hurricane, Ron ignored science. He doesn't think that they know what's right to apply to.
Here are the candidates on affordable housing and growth in Florida.
We have a housing crisis in our state. Good luck buying a home, good luck renting an apartment. And it's because Governor DeSantis has taken his eye off the ball. He's focused on running for president in 2024, and as a result, we have lost things in our state budget, specifically a housing trust fund that has hundreds of millions of dollars that he, along with the legislature, have cut.
You know, Charlie Crist has voted with Joe Biden 100% of the time to give us these inflationary policies and to drive up the cost of everything that we're doing.
Well, 2 weeks ago, Maryland's gubernatorial candidates, Democrat Wes Moore and Republican Dan Cox, held their first and only debate. The two candidates clashed on topics ranging from education and economic development to crime, policies, and abortion access. You can find more on that debate, both candidates, and all of our reporting on the upcoming election on the Fox 45 voter guide. Just scan the QR code right there on your screen. It'll take you to foxbaltimore.com/vote2022. Well, President Biden is hoping a speech to DNC staff in Washington can energize his party ahead of the midterm elections.
So far, we're running against the tide and we're beating the tide. But we just have 15 days until one of the most important elections in our lifetime.
Early voting here in Maryland starts Thursday. It's already happening, though, in many states. According to the United States Election Project, more than 7 million people have already voted. An NBC News poll found 70% of voters have a very high interest in this election. It also shows voters are extremely polarized. 80% of both Republicans and Democrats believe their political opposition's policies will destroy America if not stopped. A plea deal offered in a murder case was never approved in the first place. What new developments in the case of a squeegee kid tell us about the state of Marilyn Mosby's office? Students in Maryland in crisis falling behind on their education, the impact of the pandemic, and how educators are trying to make up for lost time. And no time to celebrate a win over their rivals. The Ravens have a short week to get ready for the GOAT. John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson are preparing for Tom Brady and Tampa. For the Ravens, this was anything but a normal Monday, less than 24 hours after yesterday's win over the Browns. There was no time to dwell on success with a Thursday night road game against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Head coach John Harbaugh and QB Lamar Jackson on the quick turnaround against the GOAT.
It's Tom Brady. You know, it's the same style and the same basic kind of an offense that he's run over the years, and it'll be a big challenge for us. Just trying to focus on getting ourselves ready to go play our best football down there on Thursday night.
Quick turnaround. It's only probably like 2-3 days before you traveling and doing all the necessary stuff to get to your opponent, and we're going away again. So that's about it. But it's football. Just got to get prepared.
Well, do not miss this week's breakdown of another divisional win and a look ahead of the Bucs on Thursday night. Download the Flock on Fox 45 podcast. Search Fox 45 on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon podcast platforms. Multi-million-dollar projects aimed at giving new life to downtown Baltimore. How city leaders hope renovations at 2 key locations will improve the city. Health experts are bracing for a winter COVID surge, what we know about new variants and whether the new COVID booster will protect against them.
Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, the Baltimore Fire Department started a new program to help protect first responders from dangerous vacant homes. It's launching its Unsafe Vacant Marking initiative. Reflective 12-inch by 12-inch squares are being posted on abandoned buildings and dangerous structures around the city. First responders will be able to see them if there's something going on and they may need to make entry into the home, like a fire or someone in a medical emergency. This initiative comes months after a vacant house on fire on South Stricker Street claimed the lives of 3 Baltimore City firefighters and left one critically hurt. So far, more than 500 unsafe properties have been identified. Number two, a new program from the University of Maryland will help students pay for their education. The Terrapin Commitment Program aims to make sure tuition and school-related fees are covered for Pell Grant-eligible students from Maryland. The university says it hopes the $20 million a year initiative will help bridge the financial gap for Marylanders seeking a higher education. Number three, an after-school center for kids built to honor a Baltimore family murdered 20 years ago is sitting unused. Angela and Carnell Dawson reported drug activity in their East Baltimore neighborhood. All 7 members of the Dawson family were killed in a firebomb retaliation attack. The city used more than $1 million to build the Dawson Safe Haven Center in their memory, but now the building is idle.
This is a textbook case of spending taxpayer dollars without oversight, without accountability, because now you have this property that's in disrepair that taxpayers spent a lot of money on.
A spokesperson from the city says the facility closed due to COVID-19 and is in need of repairs. The mayor's office did not respond to our questions about the site. A new tool to catch breast cancer before it threatens your life. The high-tech solution to detection that doctors are taking advantage of.
And our future scan computer model for early risers putting out a bit of fog. Some of the white, that's where you could have reduced visibilities all the way through the morning commute, especially Eastern Shore. Some near zero visibility. I'm going to let you know how long the fog lasts and what we have as we head toward Halloween. And if you could get a wet down, it's in my Weather Authority forecast.
The city leaders hope big renovations at 2 key locations downtown can help draw more people to the city, boost the economy, and improve safety as well. Ravens legend Ray Lewis and music superstar Pharrell Williams joined developers to announce the new name of the renovated Baltimore Arena. That venue will now be known as CFG Bank Arena. The developer Oakview Group is renovating the arena at a cost of $150 million. Speakers say it's a big step towards improving the city.
The CFG Bank Arena is built on a vision to do something extraordinary for the city of Baltimore.
This is going to change things. There's a lot of energy here now. There's a lot of business here now, and there's a lot of opportunity here now. But you wait and see what's going to happen over the next 3 to 4 years.
Well, the renovations will expand seating and upgrade lighting. The exterior of the building will be redesigned with new glass and exterior sails. The arena is set to open in February of next year. Bruce Springsteen will be here in April, and then Blink-182 is coming in May. Also a big day towards the reopening of Lexington Market. The historic market held a soft launch, opening the first businesses that will operate in the new facility. The market costs $45 million to construct. The city hopes the investment will help the area's struggle with crime, drugs, and some sanitation issues. The soft launch continues each day this week from 8 in the morning until 5 p.m. As Election Day nears, the ballot measure Question K is drawing additional attention from city officials. Question K asks voters whether or not they think elected leaders should be subject to term limits. Some city leaders are expressing concern that could stop people who've held lower level positions from running for higher office. Baltimore City Council member Yitzi Schleifer is among those concerned with the wording.
I think the voters do support term limits as a whole, but again, you have to have the details worked out. If multiple council people serve 2 terms and then wanted to run for council president or wanted to run for mayor, would they be able to do so?
Well, supporters of Question K say while the short summary on the ballot does not include the full explanation in the full proposal, there is language to make sure elected officials will be able to serve in different positions once they hit a term limit in another position. Now, we want to disclose Sinclair's executive chairman, David Smith, financially supported the petition drive to get the issue of term limits on the ballot. Sinclair is the parent company of FOX45.
All right, a little bit of fog setting up overnight, perhaps, along with some patchy drizzle, kind of like what we started with this morning, except maybe a little more on the foggy side. So that's something to watch with a mile visibility now at Westminster, 5 miles at Stevensville, and 7 miles as you head all the way down to about Easton. Now, the thing is, it's going to be patchy stuff, so you want to have those low beam headlights on and plenty of following distance between vehicles because, of course, with all those wet leaves out there, it potentially could take you a little longer to brake. HD radar showing, again, some of what's making those leaves on the ground wet. We've got some rain out towards the New York metropolitan area all the way up to Springfield, Massachusetts. Here in Baltimore, it's not really showing up much, but down toward Philly, Elkton, here in Baltimore, all the way down to D.C., we're kind of on the very edge of this latest weather maker, which was kind of a coastal low pressure system or coastal storm, but it's now kind of lost its definition. But still, enough of a disturbance to keep the winds out of the east going, that marine layer, if you will, the clouds, some of the drizzle, the cool temperatures. The next weather maker beyond this one, that cold front you see out towards Chicago, it's going to lose a lot of its moisture as it gets closer to us, but it will act as kind of a kicker to get all this out of here, and that'll probably happen Wednesday. So Thursday is a better looking day. Right now, 62, and you start seeing that kind of low cloud deck coming down on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam. Winds are calm. That's a problem with the high humidity at 86%. That's why we're thinking some of those low clouds and drizzly conditions could lead to fog by the early morning tomorrow. Leave that extra time. You go up and over the mountains, that easterly wind dries as it moves out toward Cumberland and the lower elevations into the Ohio Valley. And how about that? Temperatures still up near 60 degrees there. But they're clear. They had temperatures 75 to 80 today. Not the case around here. Now, you see here out onto the central and western portion of the Atlantic. Near Bermuda, actually, there is a 70% chance of tropical development. Yes, it still is tropical season, and yes, we could have a depression, But no, it will not impact us here on the East Coast. It looks like that's Bermuda's problem, and it's going to probably, if it becomes anything, in the next couple of days encounter more hostile conditions for development and eventually fall apart. But around here, again, the fog temperatures kind of put on the brakes right about 55 to 60 overnight, and the clouds stay with us much of the day tomorrow. But they may thin from time to time, so hopefully we'll make it a little closer to 70 instead of the 63 we had today. There's that front coming on Wednesday, especially some afternoon spot showers. Looking good, though. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, even Sunday. Could see a few light showers by trick-or-treat time, but not a rain out, it appears now, for Halloween.
Cancer at later stages now being detected after the pandemic delays. I'm Liz Bonus, but we all need to know about screening and how doctors are using artificial intelligence to help find those hard-to-find cancers. We explain just ahead.
Breast cancer screening is getting some high-tech help. Medical reporter Liz Bonus says you'll see artificial intelligence when you get your mammogram.
Hey there, everybody. With so many screening delays during the pandemic, doctors say already they are seeing breast cancers being detected at later stages. They also now are getting sort of an extra pair of eyes when they review breast imaging to make sure nothing is missed. It's all being done with the help of artificial intelligence. Here's how it works.
Once there's a 3D breast image, a program already formulated to look for additional risk will highlight anything on a mammogram that appears suspicious. Dr. Anthony Antonopoulos, a radiologist at Ohio's TriHealth, told me that ups the odds of accuracy significantly.
Right now, there's somewhere around at least a 7 to 8% increase in sensitivity with this and running concurrently with the radiologist's interpretation.
The AI, or artificial intelligence, does not replace a radiologist, but rather it's sort of an extra search based on specific criteria.
The algorithm is looking for very specific signs on the mammogram images that would indicate potential atypical changes or a cancer in the breast. It marks that, literally outlines it for the radiologist to then inspect, further.
This may be critical for women with dense breast tissue. And Dr. Antonopoulos says it also significantly lowers the odds of a false positive.
You can think of it as a second set of eyes actually analyzing the images concurrently with the radiologist.
Now, this may be even more critical for women with dense breast tissue. It can point to the need for further screening, such as an MRI, right away for proper diagnosis and treatment. I'm medical reporter Liz Bowness. Now back to you.
No time to celebrate a razor-thin win. John Harbaugh and the Ravens have a short week to get ready for Tampa Bay. Well, yesterday's win over the Browns wasn't pretty, but win is spelled with a W, not a P. There's no time to dwell on the success, though. The Ravens play a Thursday night road game against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Head coach John Harbaugh and quarterback Lamar Jackson on the quick turnaround.
It's Tom Brady. You know, it's the same style and the same basic kind of an offense that he's run over the years, and it'll be a big challenge for us. Just trying to focus on getting ourselves ready to go play our best football down there on Thursday night.
Quick turnaround. It's only probably like 2-3 days before you traveling and doing all the necessary stuff to get to your opponent, and we're going away again. So that's about it. But it's football. Just got to get prepared.
And don't miss this week's breakdown of another divisional win and a look ahead to the Bucs on Thursday night. Download the Flock on Fox 45 podcast. Search Fox 45 on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon podcast platforms. That'll do it for us on the late edition. Thanks for watching. I'm Kai Jackson. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.